Hey, everybody. Welcome to Launching
Yay.
Out with the
We are
Speights.
back.
We are back. A
Yeah.
little later today.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool.
But
A little later
it's our
today.
podcast, so you clicking on it at your time of
That's right.
viewability.
That's correct. But for those of you who are live, we are now live. And
Yes.
great to have all of you here.
So great.
So great. All right.
Right. I hope you all enjoyed the sight of the eclipse. If you got a chance to go outside with your glasses on and look at the moon travel. And block the sun for a period of time. I hope you enjoyed it.
Hope you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed my
Hi.
view of it.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so let's get into it. I see some people are already sharing. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
thank
Yes,
you.
yes, yes.
You
Thank you for
guys are amazing.
sharing.
You
You
guys
guys
are
are so
amazing. You are
amazing.
amazing. You are amazing. Hey, daughter Tata, Tiana.
Yes,
Hey,
hey y'all.
hey,
So great to
y'all.
see you guys. Okay, so let's get into it.
Let's rock.
So we are talking about when faith doesn't make sense. That's what we're talking about today.
Ooh, when
Crazy faith when things don't make sense.
things don't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
I'm getting more gray, and this gray doesn't make
It
any
doesn't make
sense.
sense to you, does
It
it?
doesn't make
It
no
doesn't make any
sense.
sense.
But that's not what we're talking
It's
about.
not what we're talking about. Moving in faith and it just doesn't make sense. That's what we're talking about
Yeah.
today. Today's podcast is interesting. As I was reflecting on just kind of where life is at the moment, it doesn't all make sense. It doesn't all make sense. And
And as
ah,
much as we try to make sense of it and um what we sense God is doing and have us doing, but it sometimes it most of the time it just
doesn't
doesn't
make
make
logical
sense.
sense. It
Yeah.
doesn't. And so I think, that's the thing that we find ourselves as believers
Yeah.
contending with is staying in faith when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Staying in faith when it doesn't make sense. And I think one of the challenges that we have for most people is, how do you face times when you know that you should be moving in a certain space of faith, but
Mhm.
it doesn't, the common sense isn't there per se, or the way you think about it doesn't make sense, but you are
Yeah.
moving in faith.
Yeah.
And how do you reconcile within yourself the, that kind of, how do you make that kind of move?
Sometimes God will sometimes God will give you the sense of the outcome
Mm-hmm.
or the results. Hey, Dr. Cummings, good to see you,
To see you
man.
there.
Good to see you. Sometimes God will give you the result or the outcome of it, but what he doesn't give you is the process of it.
Yeah. So you see the end of it.
Yeah. You see the end of
You
it.
see the end of it, but you don't see the process.
Yeah.
You don't see what you actually have to go through to get there.
Yeah.
And I think, when you talk about stepping out on faith, often stepping out on faith is just like that. Is you stepped out, you've obeyed, you took a step of obedience, but the end is not clear yet.
Yeah.
The end is not the end is not, it doesn't look like the end yet.
Yeah.
And how do you navigate those times and moments of, I'm being obedient to God, I'm doing what he said to do, but it's not looking right.
It's not looking right. It's just it's still, his Sarah, up in age and
Mm-hmm.
she still don't have a child,
Yeah.
but still, you know, she has a promise.
Yeah.
Abraham and Sarah, they had a promise,
Mm-hmm.
and when the messengers came and said, "Hey, you will have a child,"
Mm-hmm.
it just didn't make any sense. Me at my old age, me at where I am now, me in my current state of life, like it hasn't happened yet. I've heard the prophet told me all these things and it hasn't happened yet. It just makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where's your charger for
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
laptop? If you
Right
tell me
beside
where it
you.
is, I'm
Right
gonna
beside
get it.
you. Yeah. And so, I well, when we're talking about this, I think one of the key things that comes up for me, just get that there, that, when we're talking about, this here, I think one of the key things, when you're in walking in a place of where you want to obey God and it doesn't make sense, or when you begin to obey God and it doesn't make sense, I think one of the valuable pieces of this is, about staying in faith, is remembering that, faith is faith is in our ability to move without sight, without knowing,
Yeah.
without having the answers. And I think that's one of the things that makes it challenging for most believers, is that you have to, move in faith or move by faith without having any answers. Sometimes you have, maybe, as Apostle Will said, maybe you see the end of it, but you don't have the, um you don't have the steps of 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you take this step, this is going to happen. If you take that step, that's going to happen. And that, that's a challenge. Hey there, son. Good to see you there in Kenya. That's a challenge that, you don't see, you are yet to see what you know to be true. Because when we are moving in faith, we know it to be true, right? We know that what God said is going to come to pass, but we don't see even sometimes how to get there. Maybe you just take the first step or you just took the second step. And so some of the things that can hinder us from fully moving in faith, or some of the things that can hinder us when we're in this process, is looking for God to do things like how he did them before. And this is a can be a huge hiccup in faith, is when we look for God to do things in a way in which he did them before, when we look for him to, come through like he came through before, or get a result like we got a result before. All of those things can be really challenging when you're talking about faith, because then we've moved out of faith and we've moved into our own, we've moved into our own logic, we've moved into our own sense. And so having faith when it doesn't make sense is being able to believe God, to trust God, even when the pieces are not lining up yet, when all of the things aren't quite lining up yet. It's our ability to trust God in those moments. And I think, it's such a key piece of, our walk as believers, because there are many moments, where um, okay, we're getting lighter. That there are many moments when this happens in the life of a believer. When you believe God by faith, when you move out by faith, when you begin to walk out by faith. As someone in our comment section said, that you have to really, allow God to do a new thing. That the way it happened before, it it may not happen like that this time.
Yeah.
So it's like being able to step out of faith also means stepping out of some of our comfort zone, our comfort spaces, of expecting God to, well, if God said that you're going to get to this place or that place, that expecting, for example, that it takes money.
Yeah. You know,
What about when God wants to do it and he wants to do it without money?
yeah.
He can.
And what about if you want to do it without having any reference points
Yeah.
of that, who it's going to look like or what it's going to look like in comparison to what you've already seen?
Yes.
And what I find now as I get older is how much God likes to do fresh things through you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do something fresh.
What's never been done before.
What's never been done before.
Yes, you've never seen it done before.
And I think sometimes this is what hinders our faith, is because of our reference points.
Yeah.
To be like this person, to be like that person, not necessarily to be like them, but to
see God do it the way he did it for them.
Yeah.
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 See God do it the way he did it for them. And that, I think, is a common mistake when we're talking about this idea of having faith, and just stepping out there, and journeying with God, exploring with God. That's what faith should be. It's an exploration with God. You don't actually, know what's going to happen because we walk by faith, not by sight. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's having faith that if God brought you to this space or God brought this thing to you, that he knows the plan that he has for it. He knows the steps that we should take.
Yeah, I do believe that, because it's in the word that God did create us in his own image,
Yeah.
right? And he created us to be creative, to create.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna use this word, to be pioneers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've heard many preachers say it before, Ryan Lestrange and others, but we were talking about the spirit of the pioneer before we heard it from these voices and things of that nature. And so what I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with you being a pioneer.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you doing it different. There's nothing wrong with you having faith even when it seems weird and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you being a first to do something, a first in your family. There's nothing wrong with you being a first in your friend group, a first in your neighborhood, your community. There's nothing wrong with being a first. And when we step out on faith, often there are these first moments, these moments of first, going places you've never gone before. And it takes faith going somewhere you've never been before.
I mean, like, get this. God had Noah built a whole Noah was the pioneer of the cruise ship industry. Literally. There was no cruise ships
right
until Noah built that ark.
Yeah.
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 So, pioneers. Who gave a thumbs down?
That was just it.
That
Just
was
happens
me.
sometimes.
That's what happens when
Yeah,
I
when you do like that.
down.
Stop doing that.
Okay, I don't know what happened.
Stop doing that. It does
That's
that on Zoom too.
that's AI.
Yes.
Oh.
Stop. Okay, sorry about that. Podcasters.
Somebody pioneered something crazy. It's all right. Yeah.
So when you think about being the first, a lot of people come with fear, and there's this idea and this concept called doing it afraid.
Yeah.
And that's very popular about doing it afraid and how you should do things afraid and everything. And it's talking about maybe you're nervous or, maybe not to the point of fear, but maybe afraid. I think that has to be a conversation about that though.
Yeah.
Because, doing it afraid, like not with fear though.
Yeah.
Not with fear. Like doing it afraid, maybe there's nervousness, but not like fear.
Yeah.
So I think like when we talk about doing it afraid, for me, I think doing it afraid is like when you come out of your own strength, when you come out of your own ability and you step out of yourself to do something. To me, that's the doing it afraid possibly.
We have family members up from Atlanta with us this weekend, and we was talking about the origins of Amazon, which was just a used bookseller, a used internet bookseller, and how they remember seeing him, Jeff Bezos, on interviews talking about, he wasn't turning a profit, and people was like, well, why are you interviewing somebody that's not turning a profit? But now here's Jeff Bezos.
Yes, somebody was able to see that there was something coming.
Yeah.
And that's how the mindset the believer must get into.
Yeah.
The believer must begin to see that something's coming. Yeah. And stop making decisions based off of initial findings.
In every area of your life.
In every area of your life, you're making decisions based off initial findings, something that the initial starting point of things. Mm-hmm. Instead of allowing things like see what's coming, have faith to see what's coming.
Right. God told you to go start a ministry or go restart a ministry, and you open up and not even 3 people show up. But you have to have faith in what God said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 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 And I think, another piece to this too is, there is this idea that, and if I'm having faith for what God says, then I as people, we could be daunted.
True.
So we're going to wait till this happens, then we'll do another thing. We're going to wait till this happens, then we're going to do another thing. And
Mhm.
part of your being able to move on faith is not waiting for results, not waiting for people, not waiting for validation,
Yeah.
not waiting for validation.
Yeah.
Even if people don't validate what you're doing, keep doing it. If God is behind it, he will produce the results.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna have supporters.
Yeah.
You're gonna have what we call haters. Both and we read this. This weekend in the scriptures where in Jesus 12 it says Judas the traitor, the betrayal.
Yeah, he was there in the group.
He was there in the group.
Yeah,
he was there in the group.
In the group,
right? So Jesus picked a hater.
Yeah.
Because it takes both to push to destiny.
Yeah. Yeah. People hate that concept.
Yeah.
Because everybody got to be on your side. Everybody has to be agreeing with you. Everybody has to be just right, doing the right things. And often there is a group of, as you said, supporters, a group of haters, but also a group of gleaners.
Yeah, I like that.
There are people that are gleaning from what you are doing that may never give you the credit.
Yeah.
But you see them and you know they're there.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that.
And there's a generation behind you.
Yeah.
That needs to learn from the faith that they see or have read you execute.
Yeah.
Or move from.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
This is why as we operate in faith, this is why leaving books and recordings, videos, leaving that stuff behind for the generations that's behind you so they can read it and run with it too.
Yeah. So when we talk about this faith, then how do we start to how do we stay in faith when it seems like nothing's happening? Like you have a word from God, you begin to move in it, but things don't yet appear. It yet to appear what it's gonna be. Like
that's tough.
It seems sometimes the counterfeit, the opposite starts to happen. Like many things happen on this faith journey where you like,
man, this don't look like what you showed me at all.
Yeah. Like it don't look anything like what you said. Like I thought by this time this was gonna be happening, or by that time that was gonna be happening. And you were in faith. You started in faith, but now you're like, well, maybe it wasn't God. Like nothing's appearing yet. How do you stay in faith when it doesn't look like yet what you thought it would be?
You start questioning where you are.
Yeah.
Like, am I where I supposed to be? Did I hear right? Did I do right?
Yeah.
What am I doing or not doing? What else do I need? Or what do I need to remove? So what do I do with that, possibly?
I think, part of what we do with it, staying in faith, takes it takes a level of intimacy with God, and the closer we stay to God, the closer we can, the closer we are to that part of faith that we're stepping out into, right? Because everything God said, God is His word. His words are spirit, they are life. So the closer and more intimate we are with God, the Spirit of God, the more that we are moving in the Spirit of God, the more intimate we are with God's ways, and knowing that they're not our ways, and that, I believe that it can also help with some of those places of doubt, because you stay in faith when you are moving with God.
Stay in faith when we are moving with God. Amen.
Stay in faith when you are talking to God. We stay in faith when we are in fellowship and communion with God, because He can give us in our spirit, He can give us that check. He can give us that you're moving in the right direction, but He can only give that to us when we are walking closely with Him.
Yeah.
Then when we start to move in doubt, we start to move away from God. When we start to move in logic, we can start to move away from God. So it takes that closeness, that intimacy.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is key is, having a mind, a spiritual mind. If when you have a mind of the flesh, I think it's a space where in your flesh you can have a lot of opinions about things.
Mm-hmm.
In your soulish area, there's a lot of emotion about things, and having a spiritual mind, it allows me to look with the eyes of faith,
Yeah.
to look at things through the spirit realm of, this may not be happening as I thought it would, but let me tune into what God is saying. Let me tune into my spiritual mind says, let me tune into the pieces that I see that are God.
Yeah.
Let me move in the thing that I know God did say. Let me continue in that.
Yeah. I was about to say, excuse me, spiritual mind helped me stay on the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
This train as a train, it helps me stay on the railroad tracks,
Mm-hmm.
and not, want to jump off or switch lanes or switch tracks, because my natural mind, my physical mind will have me switching tracks,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so with in faith, I can see a lot further in my spiritual mind, and with my spiritual sight, I can see a lot further than what I can see in my natural sight.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that helps me stay on track, and helps me to not throw in the white tile. I said the white
Blowing the
flag.
tile.
Throwing the tile.
Throwing the tile.
Yeah. The
Put
white
up the
tile.
white flag
The white
for
tile of
surrender.
surrender. Yeah.
Yeah, but throwing the towel is
Boxing.
now it's a quit.
But yeah, same thing.
So as we I think another thing that really helps us on when it doesn't make sense but it makes faith. Mm-hmm. Right, when it doesn't make sense but it makes faith. I think another thing that really helps us out with that too, Apostle Will, is remembering that it's God is the person who is he is the one that is in ownership of the plan. Mm-hmm. That if God said that it's going to happen, that because he is the author and the finisher of our faith, mm-hmm. that he is the one ordering these steps. He is the person that is going to make sure it comes to pass.
Yeah, the steps of a righteous man are
ordered by God.
Yeah.
So if I am remaining righteous, I can be confident that God is doing it. I can be confident that God is going to do it through me because I'm walking with him. I'm in faith with him. I am righteous before him.
What's happened in faith that doesn't make sense is, I've been thinking about this, is forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't make some things that we have to forget, that we forgive people for.
Yeah.
It doesn't make natural sense why they should receive any grace.
For sure.
For the lines and the boundaries that they have crossed.
Yeah.
But it's faith. It's by faith, it's through faith that I forgive, and I can forgive, because God knows or has the bigger picture, widescreen, than I do.
Yeah.
My view is very narrow. My view is revenge and retribution.
Yeah.
Get back. But forgiveness says, wipe the slate clean, and God gets the glory.
Yeah, it makes faith.
It makes faith,
but
sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
It makes faith, but it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it makes faith, but it doesn't. The lives that we live as believers, that we live, it makes faith, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Having a life that's fully laid down to God, and having a life that's, really sacrifice for the kingdom, sacrifice for the things of God, doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but it makes faith.
Yeah.
It makes faith.
We used to drive like 50 minutes to church,
one way,
mm-hmm. three to 4 days a week. I mean, consistently. And one of my buddies, one of my good friends, he was like, "So Will, y'all can't find the same God in closer to your house than you can way out there where you going?" It made faith, but it didn't make sense.
Yes. There will be many things that God tells you to do that will make faith, but it won't make
It's going to
sense.
stretch you.
It's going to stretch you. Yes, yes, yes. It's going to challenge you.
Yeah.
And that's how faith is. Faith should challenge you, it should stretch you, it should be beyond you. Faith should require you to come beyond you. And I think that's why this is so hard for many believers, because you don't want to come beyond you.
Yeah.
You don't want to come outside of you. And so you have a hard time moving in faith because you want to move in you. And
Yeah.
faith is like, it ain't about you.
Yeah.
Faith is like, it's not about you. And being able to move beyond you, it can be a challenge for a lot of people.
For sure.
Being able to know that God is doing something when you don't get the immediate results. In some seasons, things have come and it's been like miraculous. The way I've gotten jobs, the way that we've made some divine connections. Sometimes it's just like miracles. And it was like, whoa. And other times it's processing work. You can't despise either. You can't despise the times when it's like, whoa, God just like drop it on you. And the times when God's like, okay, this one, actually, this is not the process for this one. There's other things that have to be done this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Both are God. Both take faith.
Yeah, for many of y'all that know me, that really know me, that don't even really know me, if you halfway know me, you know that I'm a really closed in, quiet person, or at least I used to be.
Used to be.
But when the Lord starts saying, sending prophetic words about the people I would meet, or people that would touch my life, and I would in turn touch their life, I used to wonder, that doesn't make sense to me. Cause I ain't talking to nobody.
Where these people coming from?
And I don't want to talk to nobody. I'm cool. I'm good. I'm good where I am. But through faith, it made faith, and I'm experiencing what God said.
Absolutely.
Even 10 years ago, I'm now experiencing what God has said. I remember when somebody released Pastor Chris Patrout, Prophet Chris Patrout, when he released, you will have sons and daughters. I was like,
oh, back then, when he was talking to us about that back then, that was, I was like, man,
I don't even want that.
We was like, we didn't even, back then, you're talking about back then, you're talking about 18 years, you're talking about 18 years ago.
Wow.
18 years ago, we were like, then this is wild. He's prophesying this to us like 18 years ago. You're
going to be out of this ministry. You're going to do this and that. It's like,
we like, no. Nah, we like, that don't even sound like us.
I'm good where I am. I don't even want to go out. I ain't
even trying to move right now. Yeah, but in it making faith.
Yeah.
It is important to, some people think that prophetic words is only confirmation. But if you think that a prophetic word can only be confirmation, you're probably going to miss some things that God wants to share with you.
Wow.
Because sometimes God is so advanced of you that you will miss him if you want him to stay in step with you.
Yeah.
If you want God to stay in step with where you are or where you've been, you will miss God.
Yeah.
And so it is important that God does send people to speak into the future. Many, many years into the future at times. It would be, when he spoke that word to us, it would be another 9 years before that word came to pass.
Yeah.
It would be another 9 years, maybe 7 actually. It would be maybe 7 years before that word actually came to pass. Now, in those 7 years, you don't doubt what God is saying. You keep moving in faith until more is revealed.
Yep.
More is revealed, more is revealed, more is revealed.
Yeah.
And then that's when making faith starts making sense. As God begins to reveal more and more and more, as you move out into more, then he reveals more. That's when faith starts to make sense.
Yeah.
And it's being faithful to God until faith makes sense.
Yeah.
Be faithful to God until faith begins to make sense.
So good.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that's our podcast today, y'all. Oh, wow, wow, wow. Yes, 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 yes. Faith Faith is not about me. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Faith is not about me. And remembering that will save you a lot of trauma and drama. That what God wants to do is not about me, but also a lot of things in your life is gonna make faith and it's not gonna make
Makes
sense.
sense.
And it just is gonna make faith. That's it. It's gonna make faith.
That's it. That's all.
That's it. That's all. You got to be okay with that. Have to learn how to allow yourself to be stretched. Um, there are some things right now that we are faithing out. And you know what, Apostle Will, I have just decided that at the end of this part of the faith journey,
Mm-hmm.
at the end, um, I want to hear, I want to be able to hear that what we, how we came through it, not just what we did, but how we did also,
Yeah.
like that we don't just get to the result of faith, but
Mm-hmm.
also the way we get to faith. Also,
Yeah.
we got there with a spiritual mind. We got
Mm-hmm.
there staying in faith.
Mm-hmm.
We got there staying remaining in intimacy with God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my prayer, that not just getting there, but the way um we get there full of faith. We
Yeah.
get there full of faith.
We get there full of faith.
All right. Quick announcement.
Yeah, real quick, real quick. Hey, join us. We having the spring revival. It's 3 nights, April 24th through the 26th. Yeah, 24th, 25th,
That's
26th.
right.
Yeah, 3 months. Wednesday through Friday. We have Apostle E on Wednesday night. We have Apostle George Obenge on Thursday. And we have uh, Cassandra and Devin Bryan,
The
the Bryan
Bryants.
family.
Yes.
We have them with us on Friday night. It's going to be awesome. It's 520 Beach
Beach
Road
Road.
in Temple Hills,